welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It has been far too long since I have recorded a Boiler Banter podcast, and I apologize for that. Had a lot of things happening over these last 2-3 weeks, however long it's actually been. So I haven't been able to get to the microphone, but I believe I should be able to start recording now at least once a week and providing you with some of the Purdue content that you guys are hungry for. I appreciate you all sticking with me. I am Dustin Schutte, writer at Purdue Boilermakers on SI at si.com/college/Purdue. It's where you can find all of my work, as we are now in the middle of the college football season, college volleyball season, and obviously basketball is just around the corner. So a lot happening. And I know I'm going to be a little bit delayed on this, so going to talk, though, about the Purdue football win the other day over Ball State, starting the season 1-0, 31-0 victory over the Cardinals. And let's just dive right into it. I thought that was I don't want to say it was a stellar performance, because I think there were times when there were lulls throughout the course of the game. They scored a couple early touchdowns. They were up 21-0 there I think it was the 9-minute mark in the second quarter. You would have liked to see them hit the end zone a few more times there in that first half or into that second half. Scoring really slowed down, though. Second half only scored 10 points, but they hold Ball State scoreless, shutout victory. And look, I think that's huge for this team. And the schedule sets up so nicely this year for Purdue, in my opinion. For a first-year head coach like Barry Odom to be able to play Ball State, and then in the second game be able to play Southern Illinois. So you presume you're going to start the year 2-0. Now, we've seen, obviously, FCS teams upset FBS opponents throughout the course of history. I don't expect that to be the case. I think Purdue's going to start the year 2-0. Then they get to host USC in week 3, and then it's just more difficult from there on out. But I thought on Saturday, what you saw on the offensive side from Ryan Brown, receivers Ahmad Branch, and Michael Jackson III, I thought that was a really positive sign. I thought the offensive line played really well throughout the course of that game. Purdue probably didn't run the football as well as you might think, or as well as we had expected. But I wondered, too, how much of what Ball State was allowing through the air played a role in the way Josh Henson called the game, the way Ryan Brown was throwing the ball all over the field. He was the only Big Ten quarterback, by the way, to go for over 300 yards. So currently, after 1 week, Ryan Brown leads the Big Ten in passing. Ahmad Branch ranks second, I believe, in the Big Ten in receiving yards. He had 101 yards on 3 catches and a touchdown. And then it was Michael Jackson who led the team with 6 total receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown with pretty good celebration, by the way. He did I don't know what it's called. I am not, I love Michael Jackson music, but I am not familiar with the dance moves. So I'm not even going to try to name it. He didn't know what it was called, but it was like that leg gesture, the hat tip, whatever. And I'm really excited because he did say that expect to see more of it. It's not the last we've seen. So I'm looking forward to some moonwalks, all kinds of stuff when he reaches the end zone throughout the course of the season. But some of the things that Barry Odom had talked about in terms of where Purdue needs to improve is kind of what we're going to hit on here. Because, again, I know I'm late to the party in terms of recapping this game. But number one was basically we got to be better tackling. And that's a funny thing to maybe think after a 31-0 win, shutting out your opponent, getting 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. But that was the number one thing. And I think what's encouraging, at least to me, was after in Monday's press conferences, both Barry Odom and defensive coordinator Mike Shearer both said the same thing. And if you remember last year, there were times when, I don't know that it was necessarily defensive coordinator Kevin Kane, but there were times when Ryan Walters and some of the players were not on the same page. They were saying different things when asked the same question, and that is not a good sign. The fact that you have at least the defensive coordinator and the head coach saying the exact same thing is huge. It tells you that there's continuity and there's understanding in the locker room. And to me, that's significant. I think a lot of people would tell you that's significant. What was said was basically, we got to tackle better. And, Barry Odom basically said it wasn't anything crazy, but we were lunging and reaching for tackles when we should take another step or two towards the football before we try to wrap up. Mike Scheer said the exact same thing. It was all about taking one or two more steps when we got to the football. And to me, I don't want to say that's a simple fix because I'm not a football coach. I don't know how easy it is to break those habits, but it seems like a simple fix. It wasn't just like guys were out of position. They were taking bad angles. It was just a matter of, hey, take that extra step, run through the player, try to get to the ball rather than trying to reach and lunge and dive for those tackles. The other thing both of them said was they really liked the pursuit of the team and the way they swarmed the football. They got a lot of hats to the ball. And Mike Scheer even said, look, there were times when we would miss one or two tackles, but we had so many guys around the football that it did matter because we were eventually able to get him down. Now, obviously, you want to get that guy down on that first or second contact, but the fact that you had so many players in that space, it almost didn't matter. So I think that was a positive sign as well. Another thing that I thought was really interesting, and Barry Odom said this both in his postgame and then again on Monday in his Southern Illinois press conference, was got to have more juice on the sideline. And, basically Purdue seemed to play when the guys were on the field. They played with a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of that quote unquote juice. But Barry Odom didn't like what he saw from the sideline. And he took full responsibility for that. He said, look, we got to have guys energized, excited, fired up on the sideline, cheering on their teammates. And we didn't do that for 4 quarters. He said at times it was pretty good, especially early in the game, but then they just got too relaxed and basically saying, hey, look, I didn't teach these guys what that needs to look like. So I've got to go through this week and I've got to address and show them and teach them what it needs to look like on the sideline. Because even though you're not in the game, you're still part of the game. Everybody has a job to do on this team. And I think that's really important because last year this was a team that they didn't seem like – I don't want to say that they didn't support each other. I think that's an unfair statement. But there was just it was just so ho-hum. And obviously when you're getting beat 28-0 every week, it's going to take a toll on your enthusiasm and your energy. But if he's able to establish that culture where you got guys constantly cheering on their teammates, getting fired up, creating electricity on the sideline, that's going to result in a better product. That's going to translate to the guys who are on the field and get them excited and keep their energy levels up. So I thought that those were some interesting things to kind of take away from those press conferences. And again, I don't want to go too far into it because obviously it was a couple days ago by now, and now Purdue's on to Southern Illinois, which is a team that's ranked in the AP they're ranked in the FCS poll. I think they're number 15 in the FCS poll. Barry Odom says he's got a lot of respect for him. He respects every opponent. Each game is Purdue's Super Bowl, and that's an important mindset because Purdue's got a lot to correct. And one thing I'm going to be really interested to see is there going to be an emphasis on establishing the run game against Southern Illinois and trying to mix things up and create that balance for when Purdue plays USC here on the 13th at Ross-Ade Stadium. I think this is an important opportunity for Purdue to kind of correct some of the issues. They always say you want to make your biggest leap from week 1 to week 2. I think there's a lot of room for improvement for Purdue, but at the same time, it seemed like there were some simple things there. It came down to execution. And I think, again, one of the positive things, if you listen to the coaching staff talk, was they talked about like, hey, these guys played hard the entire game. We didn't always execute well. We didn't, we messed up some things fundamentally, but in terms of playing hard and playing smart we played hard for 60 minutes. We didn't necessarily play the smartest for 60 minutes, but I think that those are some really positive things to take away. And all of a sudden, look, hey, a lot of people thought if you could get to 4 wins this season, it would be a win for Mariota. Well, you're looking at a potentially 2-0 start with Southern Illinois, and then Northwestern looked really bad against Tulane, scored 3 points. Preston Stone, their quarterback, throws 4 interceptions in that game. Rutgers didn't look particularly good. I think they won their game by 3 points over a MAC program. Minnesota beat Buffalo 23-10. Those are 3 teams on Purdue's schedule. So they played those teams consecutively. 2 of them are on the road, so that's going to be tough. And Minnesota's a team that it's hard to take too much away from what they do against MAC opponents because they always seem to upset a team or two, and then they seem to lose a game or two that they shouldn't. But I think you feel really good now about Purdue getting to 4 wins at least, and then potentially 5. Excuse me, trying to get over this cold. If you have 5 wins, then all you need is an upset to get that 6th. And look, it's probably not going to come against Notre Dame or Ohio State, although, we never know. Probably not. But, you got Michigan on the road. You got Washington on the road. Indiana you got at home. Illinois you get at home. USC you get at home. I think there are some games that I don't know that I consider them a toss-up, but I wouldn't completely rule Purdue out of some of those matchups. So I was encouraged by what we saw. I know a year ago Purdue won 49-0 against Indiana State, but I think even when you watch that game, knowing how bad Indiana State was at the FCS level, I think when you watch that game, you kind of looked at it and there were some good stats to look at, but I think the number of penalties and the way the offensive line played at times last year, you were kind of like, is this team for real? Even though the score wasn't as lopsided as I'm sure some people would have liked, I still thought from start to finish, that was a more complete performance that we saw, even though I'm sure people would have loved to see 45-0. But it's hard to shut out teams in college football. It's hard to win a 31-0 game. Like that's still if this game had been, I think a lot of Purdue fans would have liked to see more points, and that was probably the criticism because it did seem like for stretches there were lows. But when you win the game by 31 points, if this game had been 48-17, that's still a 31-point win. Is anybody talking about it in the same regard? I don't think so. So I think be happy with the win. There's a lot of encouraging signs. I'm excited to see what happens here in week 2 against Southern Illinois and see where Purdue improves the most. And then again, obviously a big one here in a couple weeks when they host USC on September 13th. That's going to do it for the football conversation. On the basketball side of things, and then we'll dabble just a little bit in the volleyball because I was at the Broadway block party in Nashville over the weekend, was impressed with the Boilermakers. But first we'll talk Jacob Weber, who a 4-star shooting guard has committed to Purdue. He's the second commit alongside Luke Ertl. He's a kid that's kind of been all over the place. He spent the last couple seasons, I think he started his high school career in Arizona. Then he has been in Kearney, Nebraska the last few seasons. And now he's going to spend his final year of prep school at La Lumiere, which is a place where Raphael Davis played. Purdue has gotten some good recruits out of there in the past. So he's going to spend his final season at La Lumiere, and then he's going to come to Purdue. He committed on Tuesday. And top 100 prospect, and 6'6". And the thing I love about this kid is, to me, he reminds me of like a mix between a Fletcher Lawyer and a Ryan Klein, like can shoot the ball really well. He can shoot it off the dribble, but coming off screens or scoring via cuts and creating openings is really his specialty. That kid can shoot the basketball. So you're talking about seeing one starting 3 guy leave in Fletcher Lawyer, and Jacob Weber has the potential to be, I don't want to say all Big Ten or anything like that because I think that's too much pressure, but he can be a Ryan Klein who just lights it up. He can be a Fletcher Lawyer who lights it up. And all of a sudden, before you know it, he's knocked down 6 threes in a game and really helped Purdue extend the lead. So I thought that was a huge thing for Purdue. They're obviously still in the mix for a lot of players. 7-footer, Sinan Huan out of China, 7 foot. He is scheduled to take an official visit, I believe, this weekend as Purdue, the football team, hosts Southern Illinois. So he'll be on campus. Purdue doesn't have a 7-foot commit in this year's class just yet, but they've reached out to a couple. And then obviously Another one who's in the mix, Quinn Costello, a kid that I'm really high on. He's 6'10". I like the way he's developed his game. He kind of reminds me of a Robbie Hummel type player, only a little bit taller. He's probably not as good defensively or as good on the glass, but in terms of how he can move without the ball, how he can change direction, he's really skilled, really quick. He's going to have to improve on the glass. He's going to have to improve defensively. But in terms of his scoring ability, the way he can get out and transition, and just his overall ability, again, a very raw version of Robbie Hummel, in my opinion. And then Maximo Adams, who's a 6'7" wing. This kid's very versatile. He can guard multiple positions, probably able to guard 1 through 4. He can handle the basketball, which is really good at his size. He has Purdue in his top 11. He's a kid that he's got a knockdown jump shot, especially from the mid-range. He can go off the dribble. He's really good off the dribble, getting to his spots, getting to the chicken wing or the free throw line, and knocking down those shots. Defensively, he's got such good length and knows how to use it. He can create steals when guys are going to the basket. He's also capable of blocking a lot of shots. Now, obviously, when you get to the college level, guys are a little bit taller. He may not have that same presence, but just having the ability to get back in transition defensively and create problems and maybe alter shots instead of blocking shots. He has Purdue in the top 11. We'll see. I think probably the commitment from Jacob Weber may dissuade him from going to Purdue, but you never know. I mean, Purdue's got a lot of spots to fill because obviously Trey Kaufman-Wren's going to be gone, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Oscar Clough, Liam Murphy, and CM King are all going to be gone after this year because of eligibility. So Purdue's got a lot of spots to fill. I assume, and based on the way they've recruited this class, they're going to try to fill most of, if not all of those spots with recruits. But if they have to go into the transfer portal, they will. Obviously, they showed that this offseason. All right, finally, again, this is going to be a short episode, and hopefully we can record another one here this weekend after the Purdue Southern Illinois game and kind of give you a rundown of what happens on Saturday. But Purdue volleyball off to a 2-0 start. They got a win on Friday over USF in Knoxville. Then they made the short trip to Nashville for the Broadway Block Party. They were the second of 3 games that day. Nebraska played Kentucky, beat them in 5 sets. And then Purdue comes away with a 4-set victory over Tennessee, beating them 3-1. And then Illinois beat Vanderbilt in the final game, 3-1 of that event. Really cool event, really awesome. It was packed to the brim. And it was, I thought, a really impressive showing from Purdue, because remember, this is a team that had to reconstruct its roster via the transfer portal. This is a team playing with 10 new faces this year. And so one of the concerns coming into this year, and Dave Shondell said this at Big Ten Media Days, was, where's our team chemistry going to be, essentially? And they did a lot of things in the spring, whether it was going, where one of the newcomers would pair up with one of the returning players and they'd go out for dinner or coffee or a movie or candle making or whatever it might be to try to develop that team chemistry. And they did some team bonding activities in the summer. And one thing I saw was they were a very connected team. And I think that's really difficult to do, because it wasn't like they brought in 4 girls from the same school who all knew each other, right? Like they had transfers from Miami, Wake Forest, Michigan State, Iowa. So, and then they've got a couple new freshmen on the roster. So there's a lot of new faces. The fact that they were able to beat a solid Tennessee team in 4 sets, and they were on their way to a sweep. They led 17-11 in that 3rd set before they let that one slip away. So that was a concern. But perhaps one of my biggest takeaways from that match was Purdue's height is going to be an advantage this season. They are obviously, I believe I have this correct, and they are the tallest team in program history. And then they obviously, with Eva Hudson and Chloe Chacoin gone, and obviously Raven Colvin out to the pros, and Lourdes Myers gone, they don't have the same arm power or swing speed as they did a season ago. So what Purdue is relying on is getting that ball at the highest point and working angles on the court. And they worked it really well. Now, Kendall Woolard and Grace Heaney, they can both put the ball away. They're capable of putting it down. Same with Cash Anderson. But there was a lot of finesse to their game. There was a lot of tips. There was a lot of angles. And so I think that's how you're going to see Purdue win volleyball matches this year. It's going to be really interesting because things get only more difficult for the Boilermakers this week. They are going to host the Stacey Clark Classic Wednesday through Friday. Wednesday night, they play Georgia Tech, which is ranked number 23. They'll play Bowling Green on Thursday, and then on Friday they will play number 15 Kansas. So this is a chance for Purdue to pick up a couple big wins or at least perform at a high level and kind of test where they are as a team. But again, after that match, I asked both Cash Anderson and Dave Shondell about the team chemistry, and this is a close team already. Now, it's not where it needs to be for the end of the season if this team wants to make a run in the NCAA tournament, but it's at a really good place for how quickly or how early in the season it is and how quickly they've had to gel together. So I think you're really encouraged by that, and it's going to be fun to follow this team throughout the season. So I know this was a short episode. I wanted to crank one out and give you guys something to listen to this week. I'll try to be back on Saturday or Sunday after the Purdue Southern Illinois game and provide some more updates. We'll take more of a deeper dive into the football team after they play Southern Illinois and then prepare for USC. So again, I apologize for the delay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time here on the Boiler Banter Podcast.